Hey peeps, welcome to the Crafty Witch UK. My name is Arietta and today we're going to be talking about fixing your resin problems. So some of you may have already seen these gorgeous coasters that I've made in the past. I'm so pleased with how they came out, even though they were a little bit experimental at the time. However, not everything goes so smoothly. Here are some examples of some experiments that did not come out anyway how I had intended, and so those coasters potentially would end up in the bin. However, that's not going to happen here. We don't like throwing away our craft projects, and everything is an opportunity for experimentation further. So today I'm going to show you how you can save those projects, turn them into something beautiful, and nobody ever need know that this original experiment was a bit of a failure. I want to make this fix as accessible as possible, so we're going to try and use materials that you've probably already got around the craft room. You will need some acrylic paints to start with. I'm going with black because it covers a multitude of sins, but there is always the opportunity to try other colours as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take the top of this coaster and go in and paint a nice thick layer of black acrylic, and this is just cheap acrylic paint that I got from the works. It's not any particular fancy expensive kind. I'm just going to go in and paint as smooth a coating as I can over that disastrous insert. If you're interested, my original intent with this coaster, I was trying to use twigs inserted into the resin to make a tree, but the slow curing resin meant that the twigs all moved around inside and ended up in very different positions than where I'd intended them to, as well as my mica powder being a lot more opaque than I had originally intended. So once you have coated the surface, you can leave the edging because the edging is entirely fine. I don't have any problem with that. You can leave that to dry, or you can add some embellishments to it whilst it is still a bit damp. Here you can see I've also coated the inside surface of the other fail coaster, and I'm now going to go and add some embellishments to that. This black coaster was initially going to be a galaxy style coaster, and so I'm taking inspiration from that and using stickers from my recent Temu planner haul. They are holographic and clear backed, so I am just going to be including one of those as the main central feature of this coaster. I'm just going to use the back of a paintbrush here just to make sure that there are no air bubbles trapped underneath the sticker, just lightly but firmly pressing it down into place. And now that I've got my main focal point, I can begin to decorate the rest of the coaster. The black paint at this point was still a little bit tacky, which made it perfect for applying the glitter because it would sort of just grab hold of it and stop it from flying around too much. So I'm just adding a little bit of iridescent purple glitter here, and then some silver star glitter, just enough to fill up that space and give a nice night sky impression. With these tiny glitter stars, I've found the best way that works for me is to use a paintbrush and pick them up almost with just sort of the static from the paintbrush and dab them onto where I want. It gives you a little bit more control, and you're not introducing any oils from your hands whilst you're doing it. And then, because you can never have too much sparkle, I'm going to add some of this hollow iridescent glitter. It's very, very fine. It's more like a mica powder almost. I believe that the pot that I'm using here was actually part of a nail art kit. You can often find a lot of interesting items to use in your resin and other crafting activities by looking at nail art products. There's a lot of crossover there. And so I'm now finally happy, and I'm going to go in once that black paint is completely dry with some Liquitex acrylic medium. This is a high gloss, and I'm gonna pop this over. It's self-leveling. You can paint it on if you want, but I find this way works a little bit better for me if you've got the patience to wait for it to dry. So although it's going on this milky colour, it will indeed dry clear, and you can build up a couple of coats if you want as it dries. The alternative to doing this, of course, is to go in with a thin layer of resin on top. But if you've already been stung a little bit by some resin that's not worked out for you, this I can highly recommend as an alternative. You can see a couple of bits of the glitter there are floating, but I will just use a thin toothpick or the end of my tweezers just to pop those down below the level of that gloss varnish, just to make sure, and of course to go in and pop any bubbles that I see. Once I was completely happy that there were no more bubbles, I set this one to the side, and then I could start working on the other coaster. "24 hours later, and the glossy coating was all dry, and I would leave it another couple of days before using these as coasters, but I'm really pleased with how they came out. I hope that this video has given you some inspiration as to how you might be able to salvage projects that you're not happy with. I have really enjoyed sharing this project with you, and I hope that if you've enjoyed it, you will hit that like button, subscribe, and become a member of the Crafty Coven. And until next time, stay crafty! Huge thanks and much, much crafty love to my generous patrons. In the inner circle, Katerina Soplova, and thanks, as always, to everybody in my Crafty Coven.